allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone for being here for the regular session of Goldendale City Council for October 7th, 2019. We'll need a motion from the council to excuse Jane Roberts and Justin Lee.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded to excuse Jane Roberts and Justin Lee for this evening's session. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We don't have a public hearing, but the next item is the agenda, and I need to amend the agenda to add 2 pieces of council business we'll cover tonight. We'll have the proposed preliminary budget. That's the first one that's on the agenda. But then we will add a Grant Street one-way plan that has to do with this county plan for the new building. And then the third one will be the Coney Park kitchen building. We'll talk about that as well. So we'll cover those all under council business.
Move to approve the agenda as amended. Second.
It's been moved to accept the agenda as amended. Any discussion or any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job. Thank you. We have 2 presentations this evening. The first is by Lauren Mager. He has a land use comprehensive plan and city codes point that he wants to raise. Yes, sir.
Move this up here, and I've got an information package for the council members. I'm not going to go through all the details of it this evening just for the sake of time, but I'd like each of you to take a look at that if you do have time. So I'm here to present tonight this information package and some concerns I have about a short plat subdivision in the High Street neighborhood. I want to start off by saying I'm fully supportive of private property owners' rights and development as long as it's done in congruence with community vision, goals, and municipal code.
Do you think you could move the podium up a couple more feet? So
Sure.
my head's not in your way? For her.
Your head's in my way.
For her sake.
Oh, I prefer not to be on that, actually.
Thank you, Lauren.
Now everybody knows. Like I said, I'm not going to go through all the details of that, but I would ask each of you and absentee members to take a chance to review that. And I just want to note that my concerns are my perceived lack of adherence to the Goldendale Comprehensive Plan and Goldendale Municipal Code. There's a lot of information in both those documents, but as I gained concern about this, I investigated more and more and found some more issues. For myself, I have concern about what this might mean for development, more so in my neighborhood, throughout the city of Goldendale, but also it is happening right on my back lot line, so it directly affects me fairly significantly. The most significant concern that I have is the size of the lots and the number of lots that are being put in. The municipal code requires that only 4 lots are accessed from a flag lot. I had purchased several years ago an access on there to make that my primary access, and so with the proposed subdivision, it's going to actually have 5 lots that would be accessed by that. So I'd like to see that corrected. And for reference, you guys can look at page 3 of that package that I sent you, and those highlighted lots are what's proposed to be added to a larger lot that's currently 4 acres. Let's see, where am I at here? I think the other thing that I reviewed is the Goldendale Community Action Plan. So this provides an opportunity for the city councilors and the mayor and staff to review the municipal code and the comprehensive plan. There are some incongruencies between that, and one of the goals of the community action plan was to resolve any of those incongruencies between municipal code. So the municipal code does implement the goals of the community as set forth in the Goldendale comprehensive plan. So the most significant concerns I have relate to that lot size. Lot sizes as proposed are 12,795 square feet, 9,688 square feet and 8,750 square feet when they're measured and calculated in accordance with Municipal Code 17-1407E, which states that the actual flag access is not included in the consideration for compliance with municipal code and the community plan. The zoning for the area is suburban residential, which has a designated lot size of 20,000 square feet. So these lots are all significantly undersized from what it's zoned for and significantly undersized from the surrounding neighborhood lot sizes. And one of the goals in the comprehensive plan is that development meets the surrounding area. So I think there's a lot of improvement that can be made in this subplat to make it in line with our comprehensive plan and our municipal codes. Additionally, Goldendale Municipal Code 1604-050 requires that the comprehensive plan, which designates lot size at 20,000 square feet in that zoning, is used as a guide to set land division, including lot size. And Goldendale Municipal Code 1624-110 states that all subdivisions shall conform to the Goldendale Comprehensive Plan, and all zoning regulations in effect at the time of any plat of a subdivision is submitted for approval. So those are my major concerns: is the lot size, number of residences that are accessed from that flag lot. There's a number of other municipal codes that are listed in that letter that you guys can review and consider. But what I'd like to see is the city council to come together as a full group and think about having a more public process in this subplat approval. So that, one, because of the number of variances from code and the comprehensive plan, and a chance for all the community to participate in whether or not this is approved. I have a couple of my neighbors here this evening, 2 of whom are in the audience, and 2 of whom I think are hoping to get here in time, as well as 8 letters from the neighborhood that members support my position on this and would like your guys' support as well. So I think that's all I have.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could you say the general area, so when they're
Oh,
watching?
yes, it's Northwest High Street, near
What block?
Northwest High Street and Melinda Lane.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Any questions, any comments?
Larry, what's the status of this development?
I had received a letter early on in the process from Warren regarding most of the things he'd been talking about. I did review those with our city attorney at the time. And the city attorney advised me that he thought that the short plat as submitted was in compliance with the code. It was not necessarily in compliance with the comprehensive plan. So I asked, which does the code trump the plan? And he said the code trumps the plan. But he's also Lauren's made some additional arguments that I heard him make, and I wanted to make sure that I had our attorney review it again, in line with not only the one example that I gave, but especially the example that he mentioned with regard to the access, the flagpole portion of the lot, that's not to be included in the size of the property. That was one thing I heard. It was a little bit different than what we had talked about previously. So I need to get the attorney to review that. And then the other thing that I will say is we do have a planning commission meeting set for the 24th of this month, and I will make sure that this is on that agenda of items to discuss.
So the first meeting next month, you'll be able to bring it back to the council?
It would be the first meeting in November, yes.
That's what I said next month.
Correct.
Okay, good.
What is the process that the time or place where this construction or development is at?
Say that again.
Where is this plan?
I believe they just started building a garage shop
The
area.
shop is complete and they're working on that foundation for the home on one of the lots.
So should we have this at the next meeting then, if the gentleman's asking for everything to hold until a decision is made? It would be, I guess, wrong to allow the builder to continue building it. Ultimately, we're going to say this does not meet the plans. Or the city
Well, I
ordinance.
still need to get attorney advice on it. I don't know if he'll be ready by that time or not.
Right, because then we get into
We can try, I
Now
can
it's no
certainly
longer a
try.
garage, but now it's a house.
I can certainly try.
In the shop and the house aren't concerned so much as the overall lot size. Admittedly, if the lots were larger, they may change the placement of those, but they're so far along that I doubt that's gonna change. But what this really impacts is the number of residences that are developed in the area and when it's against zoning and a number of other things.
They can
So
still
I
do-
don't know that stopping construction is necessary unless the landowner maybe feels like he may change his plans if the lot size is required to increase.
Which lot is it currently? being built
Lot
on?
1, I believe, let me verify that. Lot 2, lot 2.
Okay.
And in terms of the city attorney's review, and his comments that the Goldendale Municipal Code trumps the planning document, we have 2 municipal codes that say the comprehensive plan is to be followed. So, I mean, I think that we just have one municipal code that needs to be corrected, like our comprehensive plan, or not our comprehensive plan, our action plan directs us to do to make sure we have congruence between the comprehensive plan and municipal code. But when we have multiple municipal codes that state that this violates, we should probably correct the one municipal code that it doesn't violate.
Thank you.
Nothing for the ordinance committee.
I don't know if any of my neighbors would like to comment on this.
Now or the public?
Oh, I'm sorry, that wasn't maybe my place to offer.
That would be okay if we.
Sure, that'd be fine.
Right now, yes.
They're opening it up to comment now.
Well, Wayne Kent, 321 West Byers Avenue. My comments are short. I'm not fully up to speed on this as Lauren is, but I do support, given his arguments, a lot size and the fit in the community. And reading the attachments that Lauren has, it looks to me like the lot sizes are way too small, given the status of the utilities that are available. So there are other points that Lauren has mentioned, but I can just only say that I completely support and request that the City Council consider setting this aside till the issues are resolved. And like the gentleman on the council said, I don't know, sooner the better, so that the builder don't have a conflict with the builder and the City Council. But I think the issues are important enough to get things straight as to what is permitted in the neighborhood area of High Street and not make it completely not compatible with the existing codes. And also with the neighborhood, there's a discussion in there as far as the texture and the quality or the size of lots within the neighborhood. That, I think, is probably also warrant of consideration, though it may not be the weight that the municipal code may have. That's really about all I have to say in supporting Lauren's efforts in this letter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, sorry. Christine Martin, 210 Northwest High Street. I really don't know the scope or jargon of all the planning and all this stuff that he's talking about. I'm like, what? But word of mouth about what kind of housing it's going to be, who it's going to be geared towards was a concern of mine. Utilities, public works, sewage is another concern of mine. And the roads leading to it. We already have road issues, with bumps and holes and stuff like that. So what's that going to accrue? More damage to the roads and utilities and stuff like that. That's the only thing. I just heard about this a couple of days ago, and I'm trying to figure out, how did the neighborhoods get to know about this stuff? I mean, I'm new, so maybe I'm just stupid. But how do I find out about this? Like, people building on this and no neighbors really know anything about it.
Well, as Lauren mentioned, short plats are normally not a public process, they're more of an administrative process. If you were to do a short plat, a subdivision that was more than 4 lots, then there's a public hearing process,
Okay.
a chance for the public to make comments and things like that. So that's actually one of the things that Lauren had mentioned, was maybe there needs to be an opportunity for the public to weigh in on even a
I
short
agree.
plat.
And I think I had a note. You said they're already building?
there.
Building on one of the lots.
See, I did not know that as now that they've already started building. So most of the neighbors don't have any clues of what's going on, so I appreciate Lauren coming forward with this and asking us to come here. But, so I'll keep talking to him and see what comes about with this. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Anyone else on this topic? Thank you, Lauren. Yes, Mr.
I'm going to make one additional short
Up front,
comment.
up
You'll
front.
have to come up.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to find out whether I can.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yes.
Nancy gave you the go-ahead.
Wayne Kent again, 321 West Byers. I don't know the codes that well, and what Larry spoke of is the need, as far as public being advised, there is a certain threshold for lots or something, that's a subdivision before there needs to be a public comment and so on?
Right.
Okay, so I'm kind of thinking aloud here on the spur of the moment, is that if a certain precedent is set here, so the public input is for a certain level, only required beyond which, so if there's someone else that proceeds to do another subplat in the adjoining area, and more lots start developing in that area in addition to the subplot, then there can be no public comment at all. You could have 4 plots and another 4 plots next to it, and so you've got a huge subdivision, housing development, and the public's not been told or asked to comment or anything else. I don't know if that's really the way it would work, but I'm just throwing that out as consideration, that that would be very unfair to the neighborhoods and the public if that's how it plays out.
And it would have quite an impact on our public works.
Right,
systems in
indeed,
that
yeah.
area.
Yeah, and the livability of
It
the
would be
area,
prior.
the neighborhoods in town, the roads and whatnot too.
Thank you, thank you, good point. If there are no further comments or questions or statements from the council, the next item is a presentation by Dana Peck on the third quarter economic development update.
Well, I would love to do this the way I normally do, but when you lose your cables, things don't work as well. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna I think I've got enough handouts for pretty much everybody who's here. Let me just sort of we'll go old school on you here.
Dana, why don't you move that podium up a little bit?
Yeah. Well, Dana Peck, Chamber of Commerce, kind of the third quarter update. I'm going to do this one just a little bit differently than the last ones because we haven't had a whole lot of things in the last couple, since the last one. But we've got a couple of really big things. And I thought I'd go into the details of really the observatory, you know, which is just coming along like gangbusters. And also the recent visit by Governor Inslee, which Mylan Walling has so integral to make it happen. So basically, I'm going to have recent developments, pending projects, a look at the economic development, what it takes to get an economic development project going, kind of explaining how we got to the point where Governor Inslee was here for a real positive visit a couple of weeks ago now. That was the last week or 2 weeks ago. Kind of a blur, actually. But just as a reminder for those folks who haven't endured one of my presentations before, the next page is just my scope of work with the city, so you can get a sense of what the city's paying the chamber to do on economic development. That's right out of the contract. But mostly what we've seen in the last couple of weeks is the visit by Governor Inslee, where he went out and visited the PUD's new renewable natural gas facility, which is one of the largest of its kind in the country. So complementing what's going on with wind, what's coming on like gangbusters with solar. We're also probably one of the best 5 places in the country for producing renewable natural gas, which in addition to being a really good thing for marketing the area, is probably going to do a whole lot to keep your PUD bills down over time because they're making real good money selling that stuff. You know, and I believe, now if Jim Smith was here, he'd probably tell me I'm completely wrong, but I believe that it's 100% sold to out-of-state purchasers who are using it for transportation fuels and things like, natural gas powered buses. So you end up with just about as green a power as you could get and not have it be like a Tesla kind of thing. But the other thing that happened was after several years of trying to get an opportunity to brief the governor on the pump storage project, we had a good chunk of his time looking over the smelter side up at Juniper Point where the pump storage project would be, with the wind turbines in the background. The governor was here with one of his personal staff, sustainable energy people, with the pump storage developers from National Grid and Rye Development. A representative, the site owner actually, Scott Tillman, who's the NSC site owner, and is kind of the unsung hero in all of this if the truth were known, and I'll go into that, why that is a little bit. And also, we can talk a little more formally about what's going to be proposed there for the smelter site, which is a very large data center. For those of us that have been driving by the Google project in the Dalles for years and years, I'm not sure how many square feet they're up to over there, but the first increment that's being proposed for this site is 500,000 square feet. And if they build it out over the next 7 to 8 years, it would be considerably bigger than that. And this is a developer that's building these things all over the region. It isn't some new firm, it isn't some, who are these guys kind of stuff. And the thing that makes this really exciting is that although the project to build the data center would start before the pump storage project was completed, they'd be the anchor tenant for the pump storage project. And what they're shooting for at this data center is to have what would be the world's only 100% green data center, where a combination of new renewables that they build, renewables that are already here, and then the pump storage project, which would let them run 24 hours a day, i.e. when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining. You'd potentially have a data center that was run by nothing but green energy 100% of the time, which that industry is pursuing very aggressively. This would be literally be the first one in the world. And the goal for the pump storage project is that it uses a lot of energy to pump the water back up the hill. You make energy when it's running down the hill. The goal is to pump the water back up the hill using this huge overcapacity of solar energy they've got midday in California, and then wind energy that we've got in excess here at some days. So, ideally, the water's going to get pumped up the hill with green energy and run down the hill to make more green energy, and for all practical purposes be a closed loop, because the water would initially come from the Columbia, but that would just fill the one reservoir. And then on an annual basis, they're estimating that you'd have like 3 to 5% evaporation. So once you've taken the water out once, and I have an absolute mental block about how many acre feet of water they use. For some reason, I cannot remember that number.
I think 65.
Yeah, yeah. But it's about a 65 acre reservoir below and above. And so there's no fish impact. So the American Rivers folks have been here, for instance, and they spoke pretty favorably about it because it's what they call closed loop. But the thing that was so essential about getting the governor here, and why we once again owe Mylan for his efforts on our behalf, is that the site cleanup of the aluminum smelter, which has been underway for quite a while now, the next phase is for the State Department of Ecology to sign off on the cleanup plan. And they got lots of these plans all over the state that they're dealing with, smelters and other things. And we've been trying real hard to convince them that somebody ought to think about this thing first thing every day when they get to work. And we've had the head of ecology up there a year and a half ago at the city-sponsored pump storage meeting that we did with about 50 people. We've met with staff people and the governor's staff. We've met with staff people and ecology staff. But at the end of the briefing that we did for the governor out on the site, kind of looking down over there from mile marker 105, if you know where that is, there's two kind of big turnouts there, and we probably had, 20, well, there's a picture in here if you look back a couple pages. And at the end of the conversation, where he got visibly more and more involved with what this all means and how it's a good fit with his agenda, he said, what can I do to help? And of course, that's exactly what you want your elected officials, especially when they're the governor or senator, to ask you. And he was very much engaged with the idea of going back and letting the ecology director know that this project had his blessing. Well, blessing's probably too strong a word, but that he really wanted to make sure that this was a priority within his administration. So that was a very exciting moment in time, because it's the key thing that the site owner needs to get done before any of the rest of this can move forward. Is there's got to be a sign off by them on what the cleanup plan is going to be, at which point Lockheed Martin, which was, they're the ultimate deep pockets. They're a predecessor company to Lockheed Martin, Martin Marietta is on the hook for the cleanup. They're all ready to spring for it. It's not like that's an issue, but they've got to know what they've got to do before they can pay for it. So once ecology signs off, all the other pieces are ready to go. The pump storage facility, people can move ahead with which they're doing anyway, but then they know that there isn't something threatening. Right. And the data center person made it very clear that they got that first 500,000 feet of data sold. They just need a place to build it. And they're talking about doing it getting started in a couple of years. I mean, having it done in a couple of years. So the reason that I refer to the NSC folks who own the smelter sites, both in the Dalles and here, as the unsung heroes in all of this, is because this is probably one of the only sites in the world where a single owner, I mean, there's one owner that covers everything I just got done talking about. The smelter site for the data center, the hill for the pump storage facility, the PUD's got the water, which was originally, water that was committed to the smelter that the PUD applied for and got from the Department of Ecology. So this is potentially a $12 billion project that's one-stop shopping when it comes to the site. And the site owners could not be, of course they're excited about seeing it move forward for their own reasons, but for the community, this is just about as good as it gets.
Exactly.
And is it a done deal yet? Well, got to still keep saying no, but there's sure a lot of progress in the last 6-8 months.
Sure.
And, thanks for being there. And I'm going to kind of a little later go through the how did we get here, just to give you an idea of how these large projects evolve. But the other thing that was going on at the same time the governor was here is that his wife was here, because she's very interested in a project that you may have read about in the newspaper. It's the first one of its kind in the state. It's something that she's on the national board for. And she was very excited at what the hospital's doing, very supportive of the hospital. And she also went up to the observatory and got real excited about the observatory to the extent she was talking about bringing her grandkids back when it opens. And you never know if that's actually going to happen or not, but it was really nice of her to say. And because of what we hope to do with the observatory, which I'll go through in a couple of minutes, again, like having the governor favorably disposed toward a local project helps with the agencies. Well, it probably helps even more that his wife's favorably disposed. And I don't know many people that would argue with that statement. Oregon Trail Rally, we've heard from the Oregon Trail Rally organizers who I was really concerned might not be coming back, that they're coming back, that they're going to be here May 30th. It's a goal of theirs to try to get up into the timberlands, and we haven't had a whole lot of luck having that conversation, but the Reeds, Esther and Jason are all over that, and I'm hoping that their connections with the folks who are involved in managing those lands will get the rally up there. Or it'll be our best shot at getting the rally up there. And if we've got to get them some new routes. I had hoped to have those routes evolve toward Bickleton, so some of the business that they bring will go toward Bickleton. And what's basically happened over there is that the landowners just don't want them on their roads. And it's kind of like the conversation we had with the Oak Flat Road people in the first year. I think once it happened, they wouldn't have any trouble with it. They probably actually think it was a pretty fun thing, since it's, you only lose access to the road for about an hour and then you can get back on it. But it's just, frankly, it's just proven to be more trouble than it's worth. I hope we can revisit that at some point, because there's some great routes over there. But, I've talked to Mylans from over there. I've talked to a couple of buddies of mine on the planning commission that are from over there. And they're just all like, nah, it's going to take you. Never happen. Well, hopefully it will, but at least in the interim they're coming back. and hopefully we'll get them up into the timberlands. KVH, you know, the chamber worked with the hospital to get a $70,000 grant from Klickitat County to do a planning study of their infrastructure, and they've got a lot of infrastructure improvements they need to do, both for the existing and the proposed new building. There's a group out of Olympia called the Center for a Sustainable Infrastructure that the hospital has hired to help them in the planning process to make sure that they don't just replace what they've got, that they green it up as much as they possibly can. And the planning group was together today, this morning at 9 at the hospital, and we went on to meet with the new school superintendent and the chief financial guy there. And one of the concepts that's on the table is something that Gina Mossbrook got really interested in on a trip that these people for the Center for Sustainable Infrastructure took her on a couple years ago. The idea that maybe we could do a district heating project, which is, it's a mysterious word that we've all been around. If you've ever been in a major urban area in the winter when the steam's coming out of the pipe or the manhole covers, that's because there's pipes between the buildings where the heat for the building comes from. Well, most of the hospital and the high school run on hot water when it comes to heating. And the potential exists to get outside grant funding, or maybe even private sector grant funding, to build a district heating plant that would serve both the hospital and the school, and then have that be in addition to other infrastructure improvements that might occur. Whether it's going to happen or not, I couldn't tell you, but we're going to take a real stab at it. And in the course of the day, the comment came up, geez, maybe we could find a way to get the swimming pool involved. So I'll be talking to Lori Anderson and the rec board on that. Never occurred to me, but it's basically the same distance if you're running hot water pipes. You know, you might as well see if it works for the swimming pool as well. But the idea is to have the major public infrastructure buildings be just as green as the energy we're producing at the wind farms and the solar. And we got off to a good start today. And the main goal of these people is to come up with a good marketable design, but to find outside grant funding at the federal and state and maybe even private sector levels to make it happen, which will buy down the cost of bond measures if this works for both the school and the hospital.
Big project.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And it's, the CSI folks, I kind of have a long history with their head person, and if anybody can make this work, Reese Roth can. So that's kind of fun to see that sort of stuff getting discussed in Goldendale, because again, it complements everything else we're trying to do, and you know, being a rural green community is frankly unique enough that we think it gives us a real leg up competing for money. A couple more minutes if you can stand it. I mean, the observatory, we've got a whole long list of coming attractions on page 4 if you've got a handout there. I mean, I'm going to be, for the next month and a half, I'll be working really hard on getting a dark skies application put in for the city of Goldendale that I'll be bringing back to the council to look at. This basically, there's a new category that the International Dark Skies Association has that's a much better fit for the community with an observatory in the middle of it. State parks is we don't have anything formal with the state parks management yet, but I think they're very interested in having the community take the lead in that, because it's a more natural fit for the community to apply for something like this than it is for state parks. I've talked to the regional representative, Dave Ingram, up in Seattle for the International Dark Skies Association, and a guy who's John, the guy who literally wrote the book on dark skies and was here at the event we helped sponsor a couple of years ago. Both of them responded by email, any help we need putting this together, they're more than happy to read drafts or make suggestions or whatever. So I think we're going to have a really, really solid application. It's going to take a while to get through the application process, but hopefully we'll get that back just in time for the new building to open in the spring. We're talking local state parks. Jill Sprance, if you've had a chance to meet her. If you haven't, you should. You know, Lem Pratt did about as good a job as you could possibly do running state parks. I would have said tough act to follow. I think Jill's more than up to the task of meeting that tough act. So we're talking about having kind of soft opening in November. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen or not, because it's hard to figure out how to, they need to manage how many people would show up. It's not quite done yet, but it's close to done. But it's, you know, we haven't really thought through how to, whether or not we can make that work, but we're giving it some serious thought. Port of Seattle, you know, we've got a $10,000 grant to market it, which we're just about to get the, kind of the graphic stuff done. And we've got enough money to bring in 2 tour operators. And I'm gonna try to bring in the guy from Japan who was here some years back for the Eclipse. They brought a tour group through. And I'm gonna work with Dave Ingram to find somebody in another state that's, you know, got an aggressive astronomy presence. But what we're really stressing here is the youth education. We're trying to turn this into a STEM place, not an amateur astronomer place. That's not to run down the amateur astronomers, but I mean, to me, the real focus of the place, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, is young kids who turn into scientists. And this is the kind of facility, I don't know if you saw the picture of it in the paper a couple of weeks ago. It looks even cooler up close than it did in that picture, and that was a pretty cool picture. The inside's just gonna blow you away. You're not gonna believe how nice it is inside and big. And we're hoping to give the young kid who's got the potential to be a scientist or engineer that gee whiz moment. And you heard me say that a lot, but to me, that's what this building can really be all about if we do it right. And those are the kind of tours we're looking for. Regional school outreach, spring grand opening, which is really going to be the main event that we all focus on when they get a date set for the grand opening. A couple of things I'd like the city council to think about. When the mayor and I met in Walla Walla, 18 months ago, 2 years ago at this point, the Parks has a planning process called CAMP, C-A-M-P, I have no idea what that stands for, that it might be good to ask them to initiate, to get a little more formal in how they think about the future of the facility. And I'll get better educated on that and I'll give you a proposal that we might end up sending in on city letterhead if it works for you. We're in the process of creating a new nonprofit fundraising entity through Linda Williams, the Seek group, so people want to make contributions, they can. Budget request for the ramp. We've all thought the ramp to the roof, you know, the roof is designed and built to support a crowd. So you actually have twice as many people at the facility, some of them in the first floor, some of them on the roof. It always sounds funny to say on the roof, but anyway, you know what it looks like up there. And we've always thought that the ramp cost was $1.5 million. Turns out it's like $300,000 to $500,000. So that's manageable. We're going to think about where we try to get that requested, whether it's capital budgets or maybe Mrs. Inslee wants to slip it in for us, I don't know. But we're going to take a real run at that. And the 2 things I'd like to ask the chamber to do is the council to consider is having the events committee have a regular agenda item for the observatory now that we're really getting close to the reopening. Maybe invite Jill or Troy or whomever to come to the events committee meeting, because it is going to be, I think, we all think this is going to be a big deal. I think it's going to be bigger than any of us realize. And the other thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to prepare a draft press release that covers these things that the city would release.
Absolutely.
Start giving people a sense of momentum, so every 3-4 weeks they hear something about the observatory and get some prep for if that's okay with you, I'll bring something in.
Absolutely. It's a new phenomenon.
Yeah. So, I know this is running a little long and I'll shut up here, but I really wanted to give you a sense. I mean, this picture of all of us standing around with the governor, I mean, that's where we were, and that's just about as good a place as you can see the sites for the data center potential and the pump storage, you know, where you're looking down at the old aluminum smelter site. So the people you got there, PUDs, county, city, you know, the developers, the investors. 2 of the folks here are senior union guys from around the state who are very interested in seeing their 3,000 jobs that the pump storage is going to create during construction, 3,000 person years anyway. You know, a lot of their trades are going to benefit from that. But, I mean, this is exactly the right group to convey to the governor, this is the real deal. And, you know, it's fun when you see it in the paper, it's fun when you hear Mylan talking about it, but if you look at the back page, we've been working at this damn thing for 7 or 8 years at this point. You know, and I thought, this is not an unusual sequence of events for a big project. I mean, the PUD got those smelter water rights not long after the smelter closed, about 3 to 5 years after it. The smelter owner initiated site cleanup, this is years ago now, you know, from knocking down the buildings to getting final sign off, which is what we're shooting for now. In the early 2000s, the county was putting together what's called a water resource inventory area plan for that particular piece of ground, and we made sure storage got addressed in there. This is a kind of, and it was in anticipation of hopefully getting a pump storage project someday. The PUD initiated the project and realized that just, you know, that the scope of it was just too much for them. They handed it off to the private sector. This is all 5, 6 years ago now. You know, the private sector initiated federal permitting. This is right after they took it over from the PUD. That's going to take another couple of years. It's already been going on for 2. The city outreach to interested participants really revitalized this. I mean, it took it from behind the scenes, people who knew about it, folks who were involved with it, were pushing it forward. But when the city convened that thing about a year and a half ago in May, got 50 people, environmental groups, union leaders, you know, agency people, again, a lot of whom were Mike and Mylan working their magic on folks in Olympia. We had all the people that you wanted to have in the room at the same time, and frankly, everybody came out of that meeting and the site visit that came with it feeling really energized to make this project go. It went from, gee, I'm not so sure, to boy, this could really happen. And it happened with that day. And I think we'll all look back on that May event as when this thing really got its legs. And Governor Inslee's visit is the most recent step, and probably in a lot of ways the most important step. But it didn't happen by accident. We've been trying to get him down here for, what, 3 years at this point?
At least.
And finally it just all came together. And again, and part of my reason is just so you'll know that a lot of work goes into this. A lot of it's just dumb luck. You know, something finally clicks. But it's the kind of thing that's going to affect how the industrial park gets developed too. I mean, you really just can't go, you know, why is this taking so long? For big projects, it always takes a long time. And it takes a mix of business and politics and PR and everything else to make it work. And you know, I know that you always wonder why is stuff taking so long? Well, it just does. You know, the trick is to keep at it even though it's taken a while. Again, sorry, that was probably more than you wanted to know, but if I can answer any questions about any of this, happy to do it.
Thank you, Dana. Questions or comments?
Watershed. Can you use that for the rally?
That's actually would be the timberland you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's roads up there.
It's mostly Western Pacific,
Oh, okay,
mostly privately owned.
okay,
That's who Esther and Jason are.
okay.
Although Cedar Valley and Monument are
Those are the, yeah.
both county roads.
Yeah, well, the county's okay. The county has always been okay with using it if Western Pacific said it was okay. And that's the big hurdle, and then talking to, you know, there's some private ownership up there, it's some parcels, but I mean, most of it's just people that are running cattle up there, I think, for the most part. I haven't really taken a look at who owns what up there, but it's the WPI is the main. And I totally get it. You know, I mean, if it's one more thing to worry about if you're managing a big chunk of ground, but boy, it'd be huge to get them up there. You know, then you got real European-style rallying happening in your backyard. An Upper Monument in Cedar Valley, boy. People going 80, 90 miles an hour on those roads would be something to see. And not be on a snowmobile.
You could get rid of the cougars that way.
They'll go over 100 if the Cougars behind them, right? Well, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dana, very
Hey, Dana.
much. The projects that Dana gave us an update on are uniquely huge projects. Not any of them are small. And they're going to have very positive impacts for the county, but a lot of that will be impacts directly on the economic development of Goldendale. So we're supporting this as hard as we can because it will make a difference. We'll go on now to department reports. Reggie's not here tonight. He had a football game that he coaches. So our fire department chief, Noah Hahn, is here.
So we ordered carpet a week and a half ago. It's in now, sooner than expected. Hopefully this week it'll be in, by the end of this week. So this Saturday at 3 o'clock we're hosting the Goldendale National Night Out. It'll be from 3 to 7 on the 12th. At 2:45, a procession of police, fire, and other public safety vehicles will go in a parade route, which is from Schuster, Simcoe, Columbus down to Coney Park. I believe they'll have all the lights and sirens going and doing all that. And then from 4:30 to closing of the event at 7, we'll have demonstrations from fire, police, and EMS. So it'll be a pretty big event down there. Fire department is putting it on with the help of everybody else. Bill Berto's been doing a lot of work at getting it put together. Next Friday, I believe, I was just told about this today, next Friday, I believe, the first graders will be coming down to the fire department to do fire safety stuff. So it's always a fun event. So
Let me warn you, when they came to the chamber a couple years ago, they asked me a couple of questions, like, maybe you should be the chamber director. They were asking me, they knew more about what I did than I did. It was amazing. Sorry to interrupt you, but just beware.
I found out one thing, is
Sharp punch.
you never ask if they have any questions.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, it is fun. It's fun to see them. We only had one accident so far since I've been there. One kid jumped out of the fire truck and didn't quite make it. So, anyway, no more jumping. So, anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you, Noah. Good report. We'll begin council business now, and the first item is the preliminary budget, which Larry has been working on, and the budget committee as well has been working with it.
The budget committee met on September 30th, it'd be a week ago, last Monday, and we are presenting the proposed preliminary, which is, just like it says, a proposal. It anticipates no new employees, and it's pretty much a straight line copy of what we did in 2019, with the exception of the 2019 South Columbus road work that was done, and then the broadband study that was done. Those were the two projects we had going last year. This year, we hope to have the Byers Street improvement project awarded in November, but we still have to wait and see. We did make application, and we hope to have a decision by the Transportation Improvement Board by mid-November, so we'll know then if we can add that to our budget. But for right now, it's just an operations budget. There's no anticipation of major capital costs, and we would like to continue to refer it, the proposed preliminary, but to the budget committee, and then we'll come out with a preliminary budget in November. So committee members, I think we talked about a budget committee date. Do you remember what day that was?
I would if I had my phone.
I believe it was, right now I think it was the 28th of this month. That's when we decided to meet again. So that is ongoing. Again, we will have some public hearings on the budget in November, and then hopefully we will be able to approve it sometime in the regular meetings in December.
Right on schedule.
And then I would like to go over the list of committee meetings that are planned for the month of October. And then I'll touch on one thing before I start on the calendar review. And that is, we talk a lot about SOGO, and we did have some conversations with Gene Cowan regarding that. They hired a new consultant to come and take a review of the buildings, and they were here on October 1st and 2nd of last week. And so I haven't heard yet how the visit went and what information they came up with, but hopefully it's a good result and can provide a more economical way to get that building demolished. So next week, so today's the 7th, of course, we're having a regular council meeting. We had talked about having an ordinance committee meeting regarding a parking variance request, but Justin really wanted to be there at that meeting, and so we postponed it till the 14th of October. So that is next Monday. We will have, on the 7th, we will have the ordinance committee to talk to Mr. Mike Howard about his parking variance request.
At 7 o'clock, you said, right?
That would be at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
On that following Wednesday, we have the Urban Wildlife Committee meeting, and Reggie will be there, and then he was able to get a representative from the Department of Fish and Wildlife to come there as well. So that will be on Wednesday,
16.
the 9th of October at 7 o'clock.
Or 9. This one.
This Wednesday.
This Wednesday, okay.
This Wednesday.
Okay.
Did I say
Okay.
something different?
I thought you, the following Wednesday, that's why I thought you
Okay,
said.
so no, this Wednesday.
Okay. At 1900 again?
Yes. And then I believe National Night Out, you already talked about that, that's coming up on Saturday. And then on to the 14th, where we have the committee, actually, come to think of it, the ordinance committee is actually going to meet at 6 o'clock.
Over 6.
Yes. Because at 7 o'clock is when we have the Public Works Committee to talk about parks.
So we have to be done in an hour.
Have to be done in an hour.
Are we gonna be just talking about that parking, that's it?
If we have time for more discussion, we can certainly do that.
Okay. You have an agenda for us.
Right.
When is the public works?
Public Works is at 7 o'clock on the 14th. Then on the next council meeting is the 21st. And then on the 24th of that week, we have a planning commission meeting and board of adjustment and citizen review meeting. So that's when we can talk, that's the planning commission meeting is scheduled for 5:30. So like I said earlier, we were gonna have a planning commission meeting, that's the date for that. That starts at 5:30, and then at 7 o'clock, we have a board of adjustment meeting, as well as the citizen review board meeting. So we'll try to get them all in one evening. And then the 28th, I believe it is the budget committee meeting. And then on the 31st is the trunk or treat. And then we had, somebody had mentioned event committee, I think you did, Dana. So we need to start thinking about applications for the event committee.
Yeah, I have that as a note.
What's that?
I have that written as a note to ask about when we're going to do that.
So I might suggest that we double up on our committee meetings again, possibly talk about maybe doing them on the 28th of October.
Okay.
And then I will get the applications out this week and make sure that schedule works with. The other option might be the first meeting in November, because we have pretty good luck with having those meetings before council meeting.
So which one are you gonna do?
Maybe that would be better.
Okay.
What time? 6?
Yes. Well, actually, yeah, 6 o'clock should work.
So November 4th?
November 4th. So let's make it, event committee is 11:04. And that'll give me a little bit more time to get the applications out and get those back in a reasonable period of time. And then the announcement about the meeting. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Now, Larry, under council business, you had jotted down Grant Street one-way and Deconey Park
Can we
kitchen
go and
building.
do that one?
I think we need to cover those before we go into officers' reports.
Okay,
Thank you. Thanks.
we put before you a large map. This is Grant Street between Allen Street and Court Street. And then I provided a little memo request from Clickitat County. As they begin to prepare for the construction of the new county services building, additional parking spaces has always been a discussion item.
Right.
And this is, as we begin to start going down construction, as I understand it, they're anticipating construction sometime in 2020. And they're working on the planning documents right now, which I'll talk about in a minute. And in preparation for the beginning of construction, additional parking will be needed. The short request is due to the fact that they would like to chip seal this area, and it's better to do the chip seals, of course, in the warmer weather, so the sooner we can get their approval decided, the better off we'll be to get a good chip seal on that parking area that's the diagonal parking on the west side of Grant Street there. So what they're proposing is new diagonal parking along Grant Street between Allen and Court Street. That'll be gravelled, chip sealed, striped, and then of course they would like to do it during the warmer days of the year. The code talks about that it needs to meet the Washington State Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And I met this morning with Dustin Conroy, person that we use for engineering support for the city. And he did look it up in the Washington State Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and it does meet and conforms to those standards. The Traffic Safety Committee discussed it, and we recommend that this proposal by Clickitat County be approved by the City Council, and would ask that you make a motion to allow them to construct parking spaces for diagonal parking, chip sealing, striping, and the installation of the necessary northward one-way signs on Grant Street between Allen and Court Street.
This will be permanently a one-way street?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There's some additional parking that needs to take place, which is adjacent to this. It may turn out that they might request a total vacation of an area and convert a larger piece into a parking lot. But we haven't got that far yet. So this is more anticipation of their construction effort. And actually, it could be converted back to the way it was if we wanted it to be. But this will make it, with all the signage and stuff, it should make it all one-way, and it meets the traffic control devices code by Washington State.
You just need concurrence from us?
Actually, I need a motion, and the ordinance says I need to make a motion, that a motion needs to be made.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Okay, well, I have one question.
Sure.
I guess I'll ask the fire department. Does this interfere with the fire department if we're doing a one-way? I guess in other words, we're going west, one-way west?
North.
We're going one-way north.
This isn't on the street.
Oh, okay,
This is behind the jail.
okay, right, okay. Okay,
So it shouldn't affect the fire
so,
department.
okay, you can still go down
Court.
Court
You
Street.
can still go down Court.
Okay, and that's the route you take anyway, when you,
Yeah, when the building is built, we will have a lot of congestion on Court Street.
yeah, okay.
But those side streets should not have an issue.
Okay, that's fine, Mary.
Any other comments or questions?
Nobody seconded.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to provide a one-way designation for Grant Street to allow for parking for new county construction. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Third item on council business is the Coney Park Kitchen Building. I think you have some things.
Well, at the last meeting, Mylan had requested that we bring this up at this particular meeting to see if we could get some more information about the proposal by the city to demolish the building at Coney Park for the kitchen. And one thing I mentioned was that we thought it would be a good idea to have our insurance company take a look at that and consider what was stated by the engineer, the structural engineer in that particular letter, and to evaluate that based upon our request that it be vacated, but it's also kind of dealing with the fact that there's some people in the community and farmers market that would like to see that building stay there and remodel it. So I talked with our insurance company, and our insurance company said, well, we'd like to refer it to an attorney to review the letter, the structural engineer's letter, and to evaluate the concerns and issues that we might have with regard to keeping the building there or demoing it. And so I do not have that report yet, but you did say you wanted that brought up at this meeting, and I know there's some folks in the audience that might have some additional comments that they would like us to consider. But at this point in time, we haven't got a response yet from the attorney. And we'd like to wait for that to occur before we bring the issue back up.
Okay. Those who are here to make comments on the building, the Coney Park building, please come forward. This is the best time to do it.
Well, I'm Greg Woolwork. I'm treasurer of the farmers market. I don't actually live in town. I live on 121 Pinto Pony Road, which is off of Box Canyon. So, you know, the farmers market does use the kitchen. If we have food available at all at the market, they need a source of hot water. Actually, they can need refrigeration, which a lot of other people do if they're doing any kind of illegal, if you will, presentation of food. They need the services that kitchen provides. So losing the kitchen, I believe, would really hurt a fair amount of people, not only the farmers market, but a lot of other organizations that might utilize the kitchen, which I know they do. Maybe not a lot, but they do. So I've been told it is a historic building. It represents, I think, Fort Simcoe when it was built. Both of them did. You know, so it would be a loss in that respect to the community. Well, there's not an awful lot I can say other than, you know, I'd really like to see it or something similar stay. And there are other ways that maybe it could be preserved. I know there was concern about the roof. It could be worked on, I believe, to reinforce it. Or there was some discussion about having a covered area for picnics and whatnot, which means you could maybe leave the building, take the second story off, put your structure over the top of it to protect it from the elements. So, I mean, I think there are options that could be done. You know, you do need a source of water, you need a source of power, and actually you need some storage. I don't know, toilet paper used to be stored in there, which I think maybe is, but they ran out, and the market will check the toilets, and customers check the toilets, obviously, when they use them. If there's no toilet paper, they come to us and we have to refill it, which we do. For 2 weeks, we didn't have paper available, so actually a customer brought in paper so we could put it in the toilet, which I don't think the city or we want to see happen. So. You know, so storage is also an issue for the park and for the market in that respect. And we do use, Larry was kind enough to work with Public Works and give us part of the storage area where we can store our canopies and chairs and tables and other items which you know, if the kitchen goes away, we lose that and don't have a second option right now for storage, so.
I think the real priority is.
I'm sorry?
I think the real priority is to have some sort of kitchen facility if it's decided that that has to go.
Right, and you know, that includes things like refrigeration and hot water,
Right.
water, power. So, and if you saw the article about Willie being there, I mean, he's using the kitchen all the time right now, so, you know, it makes a difference.
Thank you.
Ryan, do you have anything at all?
Nothing more than what you have said, so.
Thank you, Greg. My name is Asa. Some of you may know me. I want to thank Greg for so eloquently and concisely kind of putting all of our concerns together and even adding a few things that I didn't even really think of or am able to articulate, because the reality is that Greg is much more involved with the farmers market than I have been. He's been kind of the spearheader and the market manager for a number of years, and it's really only due to his and a few other people's efforts that we even have a market to refer to, or to a kitchen to have a vested interest in. So I appreciate what you said, Greg, and I thank you for that. The only thing I would add is Dana talked about some really amazing projects and a lot of money, but the reality is that money is their projects and that money is their money. We don't have that, and I'm a pretty frugal person, and I try to be resourceful, and I think that the city would be making a terrible mistake to demolish a building, and the cost of rebuilding it would possibly make the project unfeasible in the short term. So I just want to caution, and I know that right now we're kind of waiting. We're in a waiting period, so I understand. And I look forward to hearing the report. Been meaning to get a hold of the structural engineer report so I could read it for myself for a while, but I would be keeping my fingers crossed and hope that the attorney gets back to us with some good news. But like I've said before, we're really lucky to have such an amazing organization here in the town, and people come in, a lot of people moving up here from Portland, finally taking advantage of their retirement properties a little early. Some of them, they say, we just had to get out of there. We're moving up here. So they come up and they see our farmers market, and they're really happy to have it, and they're really excited to come down and support it. So I just want it to be here. I think it's something that we can continue to grow and build upon. So like I said, we'll just keep our fingers crossed, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Asa.
Thank you.
Anyone else with remarks or comments they want to make on this particular building? The reason so much attention has been given to it both by Saturday Market and people interested in the building and the city being worried about the building, this aspect of public safety. I think the lean-to shed survived last winter, but I'm not sure it'll make this winter. We'll just have to see how that goes. But
Well, when you talk about the lean-to,
did we take that off?
we took that off.
Good.
It was like a canopy structure, and the structural engineer that we spoke with said that needed to come down right away. That
That's
was
a
one
snow
distinction
location.
that was one thing that he made sure of, that we knew. The other one, he said, it could, we'd have to look at the interior to see if there were some construction things we could do to help keep it going for another few years. But he stopped short of making the analysis regarding that and building a cost estimate of what it might cost to do that work. So we didn't go that far. We just got as far as there was concern about the safety of the building standing.
Rick?
Just one other comment on the safety. Other than when it's being used by the market and other organizations, it's locked. So there is no access into the building, you've got a key and get in there, and that's storage and the kitchen. So, for normal public access, it's, it shouldn't be a danger, but, that's me talking because I want to see it stay, but.
I can see some really expensive Saturday market folks getting hurt there.
Well, fortunately, there's not necessarily a lot of activity that goes on in there.
Right.
It's the facilities there, usually like prepping a meal, storing ice cream and those kind of things that need to be refrigerated and whatnot, so.
Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You can correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but in that, we can't really follow the rules like the private sector. Because we're government, that has to conform to commercial standards if we're using it
Well,
as a.
yes, and fire life safety issues we have to think about the public. And we have to think about fire life safety issues, so we don't want buildings falling apart on us, because we did find some dry rot. We found that the roof system was not adequate, the size of the lumber wasn't adequate, so the whole roof would need to be replaced at the very least. And then there was some concern around whether or not the building was actually attached to CMU blocks that provided the foundation. But yes, we do need to build it in accordance with.
Well, and I went over a lot of this with Carl before he left, because we had some pretty big discussions about the building down there. And a lot of that's 2x4 structure, which is supposed to be 2x6 structure.
Right.
And part of the big issue is, yes, if the building did have to come down, then it brings another issue that Econy Park is a beautiful park, but in a bad place, because it's in the floodplain. So what kills us is having to build something else in that floodplain. You can hardly do anything that's not, because you have to do the study of how it's going to affect down the river, somebody else. So it just ups the cost. So that's why Carl had talked about it was more of an open type building, which wouldn't affect the floodplain as like a permanent structure would. An actual building. So it runs into a lot more when it comes into the safety thing. None of us really want to see it tore down, but if it becomes a liability issue, where our hands are kind of tied.
And therein lies the other part of the discussion: what would it cost to do something else in its place?
Right. There's, we have been working on the parks plan.
Right.
So, there is that to possibly be able to get something else that would accommodate, the farmer's market. We're really trying to work with you guys the best we can.
Any other comments?
I have a question, because a lot of it was prior to my time. Is the discussion that the building would come down and nothing would replace it? Is that the idea here? Because, I heard that there's some historical value to it, however, it's more of just having a building. So if that building comes down, is anything going to replace it? Is there plans to replace it at all?
Well, again, there was a plan that was suggested,
Right.
which included a steel type structure with a sink at the very least. I know Greg had mentioned maybe a refrigerator, but I know at least a sink in a preparation area might be something that could be considered to put up in its place. And maybe not even put it where it is located right now, maybe another place in the park would work better. But then you got issues, like you had mentioned, it's in the floodplain, but can be constructed with that in mind, and maybe it won't maybe we can get an engineer to say that it's okay with just, 4 or 6 posts or something like that with the cover, and it's all open underneath, but has a hot water and a preparation area or something like that. But there was discussion at the time about replacing it with something.
And if anybody,
Then it becomes a budget issue.
and if anybody's ever been to Elk Meadows Campground down in the group area, if you've ever looked at their structure down there that has the sink and the stove and it's got a large refrigerator unit that sits there. The structure itself was pretty similar to what Carl had came up with. He just didn't have the refrigerator, and that's definitely
I've been to a number of events in Cirrhosis Park over in the Dalles, and they have the same type of open structure, but at the end of it is a storage room that goes completely across that thing, and it has all those items that the public needs, refrigerator, stove, water, within a structure that can be locked. And I think that may be the way we go to have those things there, but protected from vandalism and other issues, possibly, without a great additional expense, if we end up losing the building. Does that help?
Yep, very much.
Catch up is always
And
hard.
we're really not gonna know anything until we actually hear back from
Exactly. I think that takes care of all 3 items of council business. We'll go now to a report of officers and city administrator, and Larry.
I already did mine.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's really good. We'll go ahead with the council then, unless you want to raise any other points. Okay. We'll begin with Mylan.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Tomorrow I'm going to be going up to Olympia to have a meeting at the governor's office, and we're going to be doing a follow-up from the governor's visit. And National Grid and RIDE will be joining me, and again, it's just a follow-up on the governor's visit. We'll go from there, and I'm also going to be visiting the Department of Commerce and working on inviting the new director, Lisa Brown, to come down to Goldendale. I don't know how long that will take, but I'm presently working on it. So anyway, that's what I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mylan. We appreciate all you've done
Yeah.
on these huge projects.
Yeah, thank you.
Incredibly valuable to us. Phil?
Nothing for me?
Andy?
I thank Dana for doing that presentation. I just have a quick question I should have asked earlier. So what kind of economic development is going on in Goldendale? Have you guys done anything with that?
Well, we continue to try to figure out better ways to market the industrial park. That's really been the main focus. We've tried a couple of things with the retail merchants, and I gotta tell you, I don't seem to have the knack for it. There's gotta be something, we'll come up diatoms, and Nicole and I have tried a couple of different things to have downtown events or do things more in town. But so far, what we're finding is the projects, for instance, there's gonna be a couple of solar projects that get built. They're gonna be west of town. The town will get the benefits of the people staying here, just like the repowering of the wind turbines. I guess that's an example of in-town benefits, but it's not in town. I wouldn't call it economic development, it's kind of spin-off. I think the big winner of the wind turbine repowering has been the Randall's Laundromat. I've seen a lot of Georgia license plates out in front of that place for the last 6 months. But yeah, we haven't found a good formula for getting the downtown merchants, supported the way I'd like to. It just haven't, and that's a real failing. There's something I'm embarrassed about in the last 4 years of doing this job, it's that.
Okay, thank you. Shannon?
Well, I think one of the things we're looking for, Dana, is we're trying to get data, basically, on Goldendale, the city of Goldendale itself, trying to figure out what we have, what we don't have, that would bring in business to Goldendale, what's going to attract that business to Goldendale. what do we have and what are we missing? And if it's something we're missing, you know, do we have the ability to bring that, to make that happen? That would attract these businesses, because we'd really like to see some business start happening here in Goldendale.
When you say business, do you mean like retail, or do you mean manufacturing, or
Manufacturing,
warehousing, whatever?
warehousing, anything that would create a job.
I'll tell you what our biggest impediment to that has been for a long time now, is just how small the workforce is. The
Build it, they will come.
yeah, you know, in a lot of ways, I think the best shot we've got at accomplishing what both you and Andy were saying is the fact that people who are looking to own a house, you know, we got the most affordable ground in the region. And everybody who's built a duplex from the Carver's Road, you've heard me say this before, you know, Mantle, they fill them up, you know, 2 minutes after the thing opens up. And I think as you see people building, not just for their own house, but for kind of, you know, for rental properties that are nicer than what we got now, I think that's what's gonna bring the people. And the dilemma is, well, geez, I mean, you probably see this trying to hire, you know, for the store, the county. You know, we don't have much of a labor force. If somebody dropped in here, they darn near had to bring their people with them right now. It's just, you know, when you think of what kind of workforce we had around when the smelter was first closed, or I wasn't around when the mills were closing, you know, we probably had the best blue collar manufacturing workforce in the state. But, you know, they didn't have any reason to hang around, and they didn't.
But the funny thing is when we had the aluminum plant, and when we had Boise Cascade,
Yeah.
we still had the same amount of people in Goldendale.
Yeah, right. No,
Difference is they were all working.
Yeah, that's, but it's not the same people.
Exactly.
Yeah, the population swapped out. And the numbers didn't change.
And that's why we need to get business in, and the population will swap again.
Yep. I mean, from my own first reaction to what do you do, you make it as easy as possible to build a new house inside the city limits. And you already do.
Well, and I'm not gonna give out any names, but I do know a person that, a pretty big business guy in this town, who has actually said that they would build housing if there was business here. But they knew if they built housing now, what would wind up in the housing.
Yeah.
And they want working people in the
Well,
housing.
you know, I mean, Carver's always a good example of this. I mean, the people they got living in those new duplexes they built, at least last time I talked to her about this, which was 6, 8 months ago now, I guess, those are folks in the Dalles. You know, so the job might not have been here, but the worker was. You know, that's a start. That's a start. Not the start you want.
Well, I know, we have some people that actually drive from here to Portland.
Yeah.
I mean, that's quite the commute.
You know, you used to do it.
But just like Casey said, they can't take Portland anymore.
Right.
It's just crazy.
Okay, guy,
I'm off my soapbox.
thanks.
Wasn't there, to sort of go on what these guys are saying, wasn't there a study done about 10 years ago or so about what would take businesses to come into Goldendale? I know one of the things was just cleaning it up,
Right.
which we're working on.
Right.
What happened to that study? I mean, could that be made available for some of us that weren't around when, on the council at least, when that study came out?
Was that the community action plan, maybe?
Maybe. I'm trying to think of
I'm
what
trying to
that
think
was.
of what it was. There
I
was a
wasn't
community
Brian's-
action plan.
I thought somebody came from outside.
They did,
Yeah,
Oh, I think I know which one that is.
okay,
we'll get you copies of it.
that'd be great, because that might help all of us, you
That
know.
was
Yeah.
before our term.
It's a very difficult thing to work out.
Is that when we were doing that thing for the Forest Service?
It might have been.
That's even more than 10 years ago then, but.
And then potholes on buyers, it's great, they do a really good job, however, they missed a few. And it was really obvious with the rainfall we had, because they had all these nice little potholes and wetness, and If you wanna go with a spray paint, mark them, but, and there's quite a few in front of my place, by the way, so.
Okay,
But these say they did miss a few, so.
okay.
And then I did talk to Mr. Ross about the issue with the cooperation, and he said he's worked that out. I
Yes.
guess it's been worked out, which is great, so.
And so that's one of the things I forgot to mention in my report was we do need to try to reschedule an airport committee.
Exactly.
Okay, when?
My calendar is pretty full there, guys.
Let's see if we can find a usable gap, but we don't have to do it right
You
now.
need to be semi-retired.
Sometime in November?
I hate to put it out that long, but,
Oh, well, yeah,
but I don't know what else to do.
How about the 23rd
Okay, the 23rd.
of October?
That was
23rd
I'm
of
gonna be
October would be.
That's when the airport meeting is going on in Leavenworth.
Okay. How about the 24th?
Still like
24th, then the planning commission meeting.
Okay.
The
30th is,
what about the 29th?
that'd be fine.
I don't know if that works for me.
Oh, well,
I'll come up with something and then,
okay.
Get something out to us, and the rest of the committee.
yes.
And would our consultant be there too?
Yes.
Okay, good, great. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Guy.
Thank you.
The one thing I wanted to add on the mayor's side of this is for our city council members, there's going to be a elected officials essentials class going to take place. It's going to, they have them scattered all over the country. And I'll give you these right now because you can look at them. I know I've cut down several trees doing this. It wasn't intentional, but the thing is, for city councilmen that have already been on the council for several years, it's still a good idea to go to this because all sorts of state rules change on responding to letters, different kinds of liabilities, a number of things. And this helps you to understand your role as a city councilman, the same as I do my role as a mayor, the different things that we have to keep on the right side of the law with, that we don't make mistakes that will cost us issues or cause issues or do anything to cause problems for our citizens. This is going to take place I hate these things. They give, registration starts on October 9th. And they talked about that if you haven't already been elected, you shouldn't sign up till in November. Well, we're not doing it that way because Phil doesn't have an opponent in his election. Mary doesn't either. But we have a number of new councilmen that need to see this, and existing councilmen also should consider going to this. It takes place in Yakima for our city. It's in Yakima at the city council training center. We've been there before. And Steve DiGiulio, which is one of the leading attorneys in this state, gives a tremendous breakdown of things that we need to know and things that we need to make sure we're not doing or that we are doing. And it's very, very useful serving both in the council as well as the in the mayor's office. Now, if you decide that you want to go to this, the city will take care of the mileage and the hotel. I think it's a one-day thing, or there may not be any hotels since it's just in Yakima. But we'll cover whatever expenses. It's on the third page is the presenters, if that's what you're looking for. There's other places around the state, but I think the most practical is Yakima.
What's the date of it? Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to find.
Is it day night? Is that,
October
During
9th.
the day
That's
on
rich.
Saturday.
That's registration.
It's on a Saturday.
what?
It's on a Saturday. I think it might be December or something.
I think so. I think
Oh,
it's
we're in December?
Maybe
Oh,
December
oh.
7th. Yeah.
Oh,
But I'll get that to you. But if you let Larry and I know that you're interested in going to this, it's a one-day trip up and back.
Yeah.
But if you drive, your mileage is covered. The meal will be provided.
We could take the city reading too, right?
Yes, we have, carries 5.
Okay.
So there's all sorts of things, like that's how we did it last 2 or 3 times I've been involved in it. But I hope you'll keep this in mind, because it's very, very important as a city councilman to know what the laws are. Just like the discussion on the building. If it was just Joe's building, we could do pretty much what we want, but when it's a city property, a municipal property, the complications are very, very serious, and the liabilities can be very serious. So that's why I'm urging you to take advantage of this training if you can. That's all I have. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I know we've had quite a bit, but if anybody's here for any other issue on public comment, please come forward. Thanks, Lauren.
Lauren Bager, 321 Northwest High Street. You guys have a lot of documentation on that.
You did a great job on that.
I just thought I'd introduce myself as in my normal role in the community, which is not as a rabble-rouser in the neighborhood, but rather as district manager and engineer at the Conservation District, both Central and Eastern Klickitat Conservation District. And I'm interested in some of the presentation that you had, Dana, and think there's some great opportunity there in terms of heating the school and the hospital potentially with some of the effluent, and that would also help with our stream temperature conditions, and which spurred my thought to request a letter of support for the Conservation District, since we submitted an application to Ecology for grant funds to continue to do conservation measures along the Little Klickitat River to help with temperature issues. And we have a number of projects in and outside of the city limits. We've worked with a number of city owners, but one of those projects that we're presenting on at this time, or submitting on October 15th, is a water quality project upstream of Pipeline Bridge, working with Peter Andrus, Terry Stone, and Dennis Burney. Dennis Burney's property we've actually implemented a project on previously, and I'd be glad to give you guys a tour of that for information on future phases. So if you guys would provide a letter of support for our grant application, we'd really appreciate it.
We'll be happy to do that. We just, if you can give me a little bit more details, I'll take care of it.
He said the email to me.
Okay.
And then additionally, for some of your new members, Community Action Plan and the Goldendale Comprehensive Plan are great documents to review. I learned a lot about the city and what the communities sought out for vision and planning in this area.
A whole lot to it.
Yes, there is. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Abby Brandt. I live on 115 West Virgin Street here in town, and I'm here from the Klickitat County Extension Office. I'm the 4-H program manager for the county, and I'm working on a program in partnership with our Goldendale Community Library for this fall. It's an Adulting 101 series, and Mr. Mayor, I believe that you're already familiar with this program.
Somewhat.
Yes, so over a series of 4 evenings in October through November, we're going to be tackling 4 different topics for young people ages 16 to 24. We're going to talk about money management, relationships, nutrition and self-care, and voting, which is why I'm here tonight. I would like to present this information to you and extend an invitation if any of our elected council members are interested in being at the event and having an opportunity to engage with the young people, asking or answering questions that they will have prepared for you. What is it like to be an elected official? Why is it important to be informed as a voter? How do I become informed as a voter? And whatever else their keen young minds come up with. If you have any
fun topics,
it's good topics, and hopefully it'll spark some passion and some self-confidence in these young people that they'll be able to stay engaged in their community while they're here or wherever they end up going.
Good.
So if there are any questions from council members, or if anyone has a special interest in coming to that event, please feel free to get in contact with myself at the Extension Office or Linda Amadin at the Goldendale Library. I have business cards if anyone would really like my contact information. Okay. I can come to you if that's all right.
Thank you. I'll take one too.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We're excited that the community is open to the idea of education, specifically in the topics for young people. It's pretty overwhelming to exit the home and walk out with a sense of self maybe not yet fully developed, but also lacking some of the skills and just awareness of where the resources are in our community. So hopefully this will be helpful.
Especially the awareness of resources.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shannon Bighorn. I live on 1025 Melinda Lane. I'm here to support Lauren's.
Very good.
And I guess I live down the road, and for me, it's pretty close to where my property's at. And I guess, the comprehensive plan and all the codes, I guess Lauren kind of went over that with you guys, so I kind of probably don't really want to need to talk about that, but for me, when I was talking with Lauren and I went and talked to Larry probably half a dozen times about this. One question Larry asked me, he said, well, what's the average size out there, of our lots? Well, our average size out there is over an acre, which is actually twice the size of the 20,000 square feet. So pretty much my issue is it just wouldn't fit. I mean, those small lots don't fit what's out there. And then the other issue, I don't know if you talked about the financial issue, is property value. In my opinion, the property value would actually go down with those smaller lots. Smaller lots, smaller homes. So those are probably the two biggest issues that I have concerns with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the input. Anyone else for public comment? If not, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn city council.